5 o'clock in London. It's midday in New York City in the USA. Midnight in Hong Kong, 2 a.m. in Sydney, 9 a.m. in San Francisco, and 9:30 at night in Mumbai. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patrick L. Young. The IPO-VID live stream, Series 25, Episode 5, that is in the aggregate. Episode number 149 starts here.
And my name is Bata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered 151 will be by our guest, Cassandra Seier, Head of International Capital Markets, NYSE, Jess Froats, Head of Relationship Management, and Meaghan Dugan, Head of Options.
And if you haven't guessed it, ladies and gentlemen, we are clearly not at home in our usual locale. We are inside the Ice House, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are here in the epicenter of the city of capital, New York City. We're in Manhattan. We're on Wall Street at the corner of Wall and Broad, and we are in the esteemed library of the New York Stock Exchange. Yes, absolutely delighted. Thank you very, very much, Josh, and all the team here in comms at the ICE Group. Really, really appreciate the invitation. You've been super helpful, and we've got an incredible show lined up to you. As I said, we're in the hallowed halls of the New York Stock Exchange, where I was lucky enough to ring the bell on Friday, the 5th of July, to celebrate 25 years of Capital Market Revolution. Don't forget, by the time you're watching this, you can get your own copy of the new edition, Capital Markets Revolution, as an ebook. We'll be coming back to that later during the course of the show.
So we're running a special show this week. It's a doubleheader. IPO-VID meets PhD. And where better to do so here at NYSE inside the Ice House, where the ladies are in charge, with Chairman Sharon Bowen and President Lynn Martin running the incredible institution.
And we've got a fabulous lineup of guests for you today. We're going to be joined in a little while by Meaghan Dugan. She's the head of options at the New York Stock Exchange. Meaghan has the wonderful remit of overseeing two major options markets across the United States of America, traded throughout the world for the entire NYSE options team, where she leads the strategy. She's got a wealth of experience in the financial world, having previously held leadership roles at Bank of America and Morgan Stanley, where she focused on electronic trading and options products. Get ready for an insightful conversation about the world of options trading. But not right now, because first up, we have a magnificent guest in Cassandra Seier,
Head of International Capital Markets at NYSE. Cassandra shares her expertise on global IPO trends, the allure of listing on the NYSE for international companies, and her passion for empowering women in finance through her work with women in financial markets. Getting an inside look at the NYSE with Jessica Froats, Head of Relationship Management. Jessica discusses her long career at ICE, the evolution of market data, and how her experience fuels her current role in building strong relationships with clients.
But first of all, we're going to be joined by Cassandra Seier, the head of international capital markets at the NYSE. We're looking forward to that conversation, which is coming up right after this short video. Meanwhile, in Big World. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Patrick L. Young here. I am at Miami Airport on my way to New York City. We're going to be standing in the footsteps of giants, none other than those who starred in a recent social media Leonard Ross from 1956, President Ronald Reagan, the emergency services workers of New York, Nelson Mandela, Warren Buffett, and the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe amongst them. All of them have rung the New York Stock Exchange opening and closing bells. It's our chance, 4 o'clock Eastern Time. I'll be ringing the closing bell to celebrate Capital Markets Revolution in its 25th anniversary year. Happy Independence Day and Viva America. For more in Big World, like or follow.
Let's start with your background, Cassandra. Tell us how your career path developed.
Sure, absolutely. I'm going to be dating myself. I was born and raised in Singapore, and I started my career at Goldman Sachs in Singapore in the futures business. And this was 1996. Back then, the Singapore futures business was quite small, and there were 3 of us in the group. And there were over 100 employees in the office. I was the youngest employee back then. And when I first started, I had the opportunity to go down to the trading floor. And at that time, it was called CIMEX, which is now called SGX. And futures contracts at that time was still traded in an open outcry system. So you can hear traders yelling out orders, using hand signals, buying and selling futures contracts. It was fascinating for me to learn and have the opportunity to see how that was done. Because now, as you know, everything is pretty much electronic in the futures market. So I started in 1996. I was there for a year and a half. And I decided to go to school in Oregon from Singapore. So I went there and I studied finance and economics. And it was only 15 months when I graduated from the University of Oregon. My former manager in Singapore asked if I was interested to work for Goldman Sachs in New York. And I said, why not? Sounds like a great company. Let's try it. So the recruiting manager flew me from Oregon to New York and interviewed me. I met the whole team and it was love at first sight. They offered me a job and I moved to New York City on my own with no family and no friends and 2 suitcases. And this was 1999. And I remember the exact date when I started at Goldman Sachs, New York in the futures business. This was April 5th, 1999. Why did I remember that? Because I missed the IPO window for Goldman Sachs by 5 days.
No.
So, and I was young. I started working in the futures business at that time was really more client servicing, operations, and I did a really good job. My manager asked if I would move to London to run a team of 7. And I moved to London, again, 2 suitcases. And this time round, I was in London for almost 2 years. I had the opportunity to lead a team as well as started a new business for Goldman for client relationship management. And in 2006, I decided to move back from London to New York, and I joined the sales and trading unit of Goldman Sachs in the futures execution, electronic trading, as well as clearing. It was a wonderful experience at Goldman at that time. I learned how to build new teams, create, new relationships, as well as just really understood, at that moment, what were changing around market structure. And lo and behold, the financial crisis happened in 2008. And I was tasked to kind of just leverage my background in market structure and also electronic trading to understand a little bit more around derivatives clearing. So I started the Goldman Sachs swaps clearing business back during the financial crisis. And fast forward, I spent 24 and a half years at Goldman across 3 different continents. And 2022, I met Lynn Martin, who is the president of New York Stock Exchange. We knew each other when she was the COO of Live US, which is London Interbank Financial Futures Exchange, for those who don't know. And we had always stayed in touch. And when she took the role at New York Stock Exchange, she mentioned to me that she was looking for someone who has a new perspective and will be able to come in and really drive the business and build a strong team. I was really interested at that time to pivot. And it was really exciting for me to work for a female, powerhouse. And several conversations later, I started my head of international capital markets role here at the New York Stock Exchange, and the rest is history.
Wow. And I mean, being here, a powerhouse in the IPO business, it must be quite incredible because the last couple of years have been so years for IPOs worldwide, but we seem to have seen a bit of a pickup this year. What do you think is going to be happening?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually think 2024 has shaped out to be a pretty strong first half.
Yeah.
And if you look at the amount of new IPO proceeds, New York Stock Exchange actually led the charge here for first half. We raised $12 billion, which is more than the last 2 years combined. So to your point, 2024 has, started to look really strong for the IPO market. And we also did 7 out of 10 largest transactions. And, that included Alma Sports, which is a European company based in Helsinki, and also Viking Cruise, which is also the largest IPO at 1.6 billion. So these are really great numbers. And we also saw 3 tech companies come in this year, including Rubrik, Reddit, and Ibotta, which is fantastic because I think the IPO market is in need of such type of different type of markets across different countries, different market cap, different sector.
It's an interesting calibration you mentioned, because actually the Lynn Martin era already seems to be epitomized by the fact that we're seeing this gentle calibration towards tech companies as well as Main Street America and Main Street of the world.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think investors are always looking for different opportunities.
Right.
And tech investments in general had been one that a lot of investors are watching for.
Yeah.
And because we had not had, tech stocks for a while, so those three really help drive the momentum.
Yeah, and that's an incredible number, $12 billion.
Yes, absolutely.
But there is competition. So how do you pitch yourself to these exciting companies still keeping?
Yeah, so, for me and my team, international capital markets is where we go out of the US and we try to pitch non-US companies to come and list at the NYSE. So we are not just talking about from a private to public debut, but also public to public debut. What does that mean? So a company might already be listed elsewhere at another exchange, and they are looking for potentially a dual listing. So for example, Flutter Entertainment, that was one that came in early this year.
Yep.
And, great celebration. I don't know if you saw that. It was out here in front of the New York Stock Exchange with Gronkowski, famous football player who had a massive celebration because he's one of the ambassadors for Flutter Entertainment. But Flutter Entertainment is $35 billion when it first moved its primary listing from the LSE to the NYSE. And a big part of the reason for that is also because of the growth in the US with FanDuel, which is one of the subsidiaries.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, we continue to see that. In fact, just Monday of this week, we saw Smurfit Westrock,
right,
which is another one of these European company that was listed in London, merged with a US Westrock company to become one of the largest paper companies in the world. So very exciting on the international front. But, I think to the point about pitching, it's really quite easy for investors to understand that this is where the deepest liquidity is. And so, that helps sell the reason. And also we have a very unique marketplace and a unique investor base in the US. It's a broad base of investor type, whether it is institutional, real money, fast money, sovereign wealth fund, corporate pensions, as well as a very strong retail investor base.
And that's very interesting because, you've mentioned this attraction, and I think it's incredible because certainly over the course of the last, say, 3, 4, 5 years, we're seeing a lot of companies coming from overseas into the NYSE. There was a wave of maybe Chinese companies a number of years ago, but recently, they're coming from those old money environments of Europe, aren't they? The UK and also continental Europe. It must be very interesting as a sales process, but what else is driving them? Is it just all about the money and the liquidity, or do you have other facilities?
There are a few reasons, but I would say that, we have to also take into account that many companies, whether it's Europe or elsewhere, they look to the NYSE as the place where they can really tell their stories.
Yep.
It is a fantastic visibility platform, whether it is press, social, or, even just digital billboards. In the US, we really believe in amplifying a company's story and being able to leverage our platform. You were on the trading floor just now. You saw that there were 30 plus media outlets on the trading floor. CNBC has a big central booth in the middle of the trading floor. The amount of visibility exposure when a CEO comes into this building is, second to none.
Well, it's that base number, isn't it? 120 million people are watching the bell ceremonies every day. You can't get that sort of number very easily. So it's 1.5 times the population of France or something like that. It's an incredible, it's a staggering statistic, I think. And also, but you mentioned a very interesting thing because it's also about opportunity and the American dream. I came back from the floor the other day. I was in a great mood. I just rang the bell.
Yes.
The bellhop, the doorman says to me, "Sir, you look really happy. What's happened in your afternoon?" And I said, "I've just rang the bell in New York Stock Exchange." And he said, "Sir, stop right there. May I shake your hand? Because I'm an ambitious American and I'm so happy that I see these people about." That's an incredible story. You don't get that when you do that somewhere else in the world.
That's right. And it never gets old. the excitement and the adrenaline, but it really helps capture the visibility and the marketing of any company that is here to whether to ring the bell or they come back to celebrate an anniversary. So those are quite special. And generally speaking, I think the New York Stock Exchange has the best tools and services that we can offer to any company that are here to list for the first time, or when they want to continue their lifetime partnership with us. It is a lifetime relationship that we establish. It is not a one-time transactional relationship.
You are the world's most exclusive country club. That's what I say.
It is a pretty prestigious platform. I mean, we are 232 years old, so it comes with a lot of fantastic prestige and credibility. Yeah. And it is the gold standard of the industry.
Yeah. But then on the other hand, it is welcoming talent from all over the world, welcoming companies from all over the world. Mm-hmm. So tell us, what is the biggest moment for you in this beautiful platform?
Yeah. So, you mentioned about the excitement when you ring a bell. I mean, I have seen several bells. I've seen celebrities that come in through this building. 11 Wall Street is really the epicenter of capital markets. There are a few moments. Give you a few examples. Serena Williams, famous tennis player. She was here last year, and I was there in person to see her. She was up on the podium, and she rang the bell to celebrate the launch of Serena Ventures, a VC fund, and also right before she ended her last game at the U.S. Open.
Right.
So that was really special. I saw Mr. Ralph Lauren, who came back to ring the bell for the 25th anniversary last year. Again, to see someone in person here, fabulous. And then, earlier this year, I think it's interesting to see celebrities like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, who was here to ring the bell. What else? The First Lady of the United States, Dr. Joe Biden,
seriously,
was right here to talk about, for the Women's Healthcare Summit. But the most special moment for me to date, which can change and improve, was last September during UNGA Week, United Nations Global Assembly. And I was in the same room with the prime ministers. One day was Prime Minister of Vietnam. Another day was Prime Minister of Thailand. Wow. And again, my humble beginning from 1996 at Goldman Sachs in Singapore to today in 2024 in the same room as two heads of states from Southeast Asia.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
Just incredible altogether. Well, Cassandra, it's been a joy to have you here. But before you go, there's always one question we have to ask everybody, because, of course, it's the 25th anniversary of this book, Capital Market Revolution.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're ringing the bell. So quickly, where do you think the capital market revolution goes next?
It's pretty difficult to predict the future, but I would imagine, there's going to be hopefully more adaptation of advanced technology to help in the capital markets process. And hopefully, with technology, additional technology or AI, it might make raising debt and capital to be different. It might streamline the process. It might help in efficiency and hopefully a little more security as well. So I'm excited about that opportunity, that potential.
We're excited about the opportunity too, Cassandra.
Thank you.
And before we wrap up, and we want to talk to all the ladies, all the Women on It community members, what is your number one life lesson quote? How did it change you?
Yeah, so it's difficult to choose that number one. I have several, but I would just say that I like what Warren Buffett said. And he basically said he wished he knew earlier that happiness is a choice, but it is a lot of work.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, our second guest today in the illustrious library of the New York Stock Exchange. Joining us is Jess Froats. She's the head of relationship management at the New York Stock Exchange.
You've been part of ICE for your whole career. Can you share with us, how did it impact you?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it, and congratulations on 25 years.
Thank you.
And coincidentally, yesterday I celebrated my 17th anniversary of being an ICE employee.
Wow.
Yay, I can wave my scarf.
That's scarf to wave.
That's about what you get for armed robbery in most parts of the world, but you can get like 50% remission for armed robbery. That's the thing that you bear in mind.
So I'm quite proud.
Congratulations. That's incredible. It's an incredible milestone to knock in like 17 years New York Stock Exchange isn't such a big even as 232 years old, but you've actually been there with ICE for 2/3 of the entire life of the company.
It's a great way to look at it. Yeah. So I joined ICE market data team in 2007, and the company was in the process of, they had just bought the New York Board of Trade, and they were in the process of listing all of the tradable soft commodity contracts onto ICE's electronic trading platform called WebICE. And so instantly there was more to learn than just the energy markets and market data on the energy markets, right? So part of that migration was also the data sets that came along with the NYBOT acquisition. And, so when shortly after that, we've got NGX Alliance, we've got NGI, you remember this, Kim Connect, right? Yep. We've got Chatham Brokers. I wrote this down. And then data center migrations and all that. And that was all just before the end of that year. So it's 6 months' time. This is what I'm witnessing. So the way that I put it is I was witnessing evolution and growth from day one. My ignorance on what had just happened or what was going on in the markets was kind of countered with all of the extra work that we were getting, put on our plates from all the acquisitions. So really, that's all I know this company to be is just a growth machine.
Yeah.
But let's face it, it's not really, your career is not, let's fake it till you make it. How did you start? I mean, how did you get into this position?
So I was a Spanish major in a Maryland state school. And, some point during that senior year, I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? I went and stayed on for another year and did a 4+1 MBA. And I had a family member, an uncle of mine, who worked at ICE and started the help desk in Atlanta. He was a metals trader back in the day. So he passed my resume to New York. And so that's how I landed here. We were at a very small Times Square office of about 10 to 12 people. The market data team sat next to the energy sales team. So a lot of us are still here today, actually, which is great. Very good friends.
So that was well before the Exchange Invest newsletter came about.
Yes, even so, but however, we had been in the background for some time. But it's interesting because, therefore your career was shaped by market data. And that's a very, very interesting time for the market data business because it really just starts to explode.
Sure. It was a very small team, lean team. I laugh. We used to send settlement prices on NGL contracts in an email to the Wall Street Journal for print. And that's, part of the job back then. We were doing a lot of different things. There were automated reports coming from the trading engines as well, and tick data files and things like that, real time being pushed to the trading platform. But we definitely did a lot of different things, and how far we've come now with automation.
But it's not just the automation, it's the amount of data. Because what NYBOT generated was a very finite amount, whereas now it must feel as if, effectively you're generating an infinite amount of data every day.
Yeah, one of the coolest parts about being in a data seat through all of this M&A activity is we're not pigeonholed into one area, or one asset class. So anytime there would be a new entity coming on board, we would meet with them, look at all of the data sets that they have, see how it fits into the ICE ecosystem. Do we want to incorporate it into existing files? Is it too large to do that?
Yeah.
Do we want to give it its own container? Do you sunset it? Right. So all of these decisions were being made on the fly almost. And the amount of data just surmounted to, here they had to expand the warehouse in Atlanta and all of that. So for sure, to your point.
And it's incredible because then now you've moved sort of from data into, so explain your role at the moment in terms of being in charge of relationship management.
Sure. So the 15 years that I spent in market data, working closely with sales and relationship management teams on the trading side of both ICE and the NYSE, but specifically NYSE is where I'm at now. We really deal with the trading community, all the trading participants on the exchange across, all different types of trading clients. When I took on the role about a year and change ago, we merged the data sales team with the relationship management team, which is going really well. I'm really happy, seeing what I'm seeing. A lot of the traders are making the data decisions anyway. It gives us new expertise. It's sort of a one-point contact for your market data and your trading needs, and I think it's going really well.
Great. That's really, really good. And for you, what's it like having this super role where you've got to deal with all of the people who are delivering the liquidity to ICE at the same time as also overseeing so much of this data sales function?
It's certainly challenging. It was a learning curve for me. Our clients have been really receptive to, taking meetings with us, giving us really quality feedback. They are fair, they're honest, which I really appreciate. So yeah, as intimidating as it was at first, they've just been such great partners for us and helping us achieve what we're looking to achieve.
That's terrific. It's really interesting to hear. And how do you feel about being based out of New York?
It's all I know. I'm a New York State native. I live in the suburbs of New Jersey, and I come into the financial district every single day. So that's how I feel about it. It's exciting. It's what I know. But yeah, New York is certainly it's a vibe.
It is a vibe. It's certainly the city that never sleeps, and it's quite incredible to come and be here to see just how amazing it is at all points in time.
Well, we're happy to have you here.
Oh, it's a joy. We're delighted to be here.
We are absolutely delighted. One of the things that I point out to everybody is empathy, and how critical empathy is when you're creating team and when you have teamwork and dream work. All these buzzwords are thrown together. How do you collaborate with other team members? How do you make sure that the clock ticks?
One of the beauties of being here so long is that I have made a lot of relationships internally that have just helped me get to where I need to go or where clients need to be. And so knowing who to go to is a big part of the success we have on our team. Exchange content from a data perspective is just one piece of the pie, right? They also need that content delivered. Our clients need that content delivered. They need to be able to access it. And so we have groups across the ICE organization who specialize in that delivery. So we often call on them. We have a client, would you like to come to the meeting? Or they call on us. Hey, we want to bring you guys in. They want to talk about NYSE market data products or trading products. And it's a wonderful marriage, I would say. We lean on each other a lot. So there's constant collaboration. There are other parts of the business that we collaborate with too. From a desktop perspective, somebody's looking for, a wealth management platform with content streaming through it. We've got the content, they've got the desktop. Or on the exchange side, the ICE exchange, our ICE exchange counterparts who have business contacts and exchange contacts at, some of our largest customers, or not our largest customers, but they might cover all of ICE and all of NYSE. And so we'll go in together, and I think it shows a very united front. We know what's going on in both arenas. Yeah.
But it's incredible. I mean, it must be incredible for you because over that 17-year period, I mean, you have gone from this tiny office in Times Square with essentially completely, contiguous operations, but all effectively sitting on the same desk, to an organization that spans the world, that owns the New York Stock Exchange, that is essentially a powerhouse, the top of Young's Pyramid as an international exchange group. That must be really fascinating.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So you're a woman of multitasking. So now let's segue into life lesson quote. What is your favorite quote and how did it change you?
My favorite quote is, "Life is a journey, not a destination." I refer back to this quote quite often in, a day or a time period of frustration, where it's a reminder. It sort of reframes for me, hey, this is actually a positive. You're going to get so much more out of it being a journey versus, a simple destination that you just land upon, because that's how you grow and that's how you innovate.
Right.
In life, personally and professionally.
And talking of innovation, somebody wrote a book somewhere, I can't remember who, at some stage, somewhere in the distant past, but what I've got to ask you therefore is, Jess, where does the capital market revolution go?
So I'm going to bring it back to data.
Mm-hmm.
And our teams are constantly working on ways to use the data. And I think getting more juice out of the data we have and big data and using new applications that provide efficiency and insight is where you're going to be headed next.
So what we need is a better squeezing device. I think that's very, very interesting. And I think you're quite right. I think that's a fascinating insight altogether. So, Jen Froats, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining IPO-VID.
And Woman on It, Hack the Future.
Our finance book of the week. Well, what else could it be, ladies and gentlemen? We are here in the Ice House in New York City. And on July the 5th, we had the joy of ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange in order to celebrate what was an incredible anniversary, 25 years of capital market revolution. The revolution isn't over yet, and that's why I've decided to bring you something that is a little bit of an update. The original capital market revolution, plus a little bit of extra text. It's available now in an ebook. You can download that for your Kindle via the good offices of the folks of Amazon. Another of those places that functions as an exchange, although it's not quite regulated as heavily as, say, the New York Stock Exchange itself. Out now, ladies and gentlemen, Capital Market Revolution turns 25. Get your copy by going to Amazon.com.
We are joined by Meaghan Dugan, the head of options at the New York Stock Exchange. You began your career, Meaghan, on the floor in San Francisco and now serve as head of options at NYSE. How has your career evolved as technology has become an integral part of trading?
It's a great question. Thank you very much for having me. It's interesting to going almost full circle, starting on the trading floor as somebody who did not know that much about options to begin with, and diving deep into the deep end and understanding the nuances of how options are priced, how they're traded, how order flow is handled, how our exchange rules supported, et cetera, in that time period. And that time period was a long time ago, 1999 to 2000, right around Y2K. So, it's been an amazing journey, but it's really rewarding knowing that as head of options for the New York Stock Exchange, when I do go back to NYSE, ARCA in San Francisco, I still know pretty much 95% of the people there. so they're all, old friends.
Yeah. So what about technology? Have you got background in technology, or were you always passionate about tech?
So as in that time period in the early 2000s in the U.S. options market, it was really vital because the marketplace was really starting to pick up as far as how many exchanges were available to trade on, how many instruments were available to trade and make markets on. And all along with that became, obviously, to do that, you needed technology to be able to drive that. So coming from the market making background through when I was originally with Morgan Stanley, we actually had to learn how to code to trade our equity hedges at the end of the day. So we actually had to go to a San Francisco State University night school to start learning some background and some level of coding so that we can continue doing our day-to-day jobs, because things were not as graphically user interfaced easy to use as they were 25 years ago. So I learned it really early, and it became an interesting part of this evolving change where, you could see it coming, like the not only the use of more technology in your day-to-day activities, but also the scalability the technology offered in the market space. So when I was with Morgan Stanley, myself and my partner, we ran a specialist post of 120 different stocks. We were the only ones on the floor that did that. Typically, you needed one person for every 25 names because they were doing it manually. But because we employed an automatic model in market making and as a specialist, we could actually do it on a much more scalable nature. So it always kept me super intrigued in the technology space. So I've always been very close to it ever since.
Well done.
And that's fascinating because, actually, it's quite interesting because therefore we must have overlapped on the one and only occasion when I visited Peak Coast, because that was sometime in late 1999. I remember it very, very well. It was a fascinating time, actually, because what I remember about going to Peak Coast at that stage was that all the market makers, they had those medical tablet computers.
Yes, we did.
And I remember having a conversation with the market makers, and they were like, so what does this capital market revolution thing do for me? And I said, well, here's the deal. Why are you trading the stocks of the future, which at that point in time were like Microsoft, Dell, etc., that were really starting to bubble? And we were looking at this incredible situation with they had a medical tablet and we were all shouting at each other in order to do the transactions, which made kind of no sense whatsoever. I mean, why was the thing? And that was such an interesting, almost epiphany for me, because I really thought, wow, we definitely are going into a post-floor generation when you've got this weird market. But the options market you mentioned, I mean, since 2000, incredible growth. The arrival of the International Securities Exchange starts that whole electronification process. The market becomes much more institutional as a result of ISE. And then the last 5, 6, 7 years seems to be just been an absolute blur of growth. It's incredible. What has been driving that fabulous growth?
So that you bring up a really good point of this sort of two different halves, right? So the early 2000s, I would say 2000 to 2010, we started having a lot more new exchanges come to board.
Yeah.
So we had, coming from 4 to 6 to 7, Box ISE, a few others, and then a couple doubles that came through, a couple acquisitions along the way. So that's much different because outside of MEMX that just launched last September as a new exchange entrant, we really haven't had a new other exchange come to market.
Right.
What's really driven the growth in the last 4 or 5 years is really sort of coming from 3 areas that we really draw from. Number one, in 2020 and 2021 is really capital markets are super strong.
Right.
We had new IPOs coming to market. We had roughly 1,200 new underlyings come in. And for us option traders, that means we can quote them in tradable instruments.
Right.
So we have more tradable instruments to our micro makers can quote and trade and provide as, benefits for our investors to come into the market on. So that's one side, was that we said new IPOs. We had more underlying. So we have roughly 4,200 underlyings, where before we had 3,000.
Yes.
That was one. Number two, retail. People were home during COVID. They were learning a lot about U.S. options because of the growth of U.S. options, and they were looking at individual stocks that were pertinent to them.
Yeah.
So we saw a lot more single stock interest from retail, smaller lot size order flow. That was a huge driver of growth. And the third area was in roughly Q3, the SEC approved the original 3 ETFs for short-dated options.
Yep.
So allowing Wednesdays to trade and then Mondays to trade in SPYs, Qs, and IWM, which just allowed it not new underlyings, but new maturity cycles to come into the market for people to trade in a much more fine-tuned, risk-based manner, which is now just continues to be evolving on top of, because in November of last year, we had SEC approved 5 additional ETFs in that space. And so they allow Wednesday trading in those new 5 ETFs. So there's been some of the newer growth based on those 3 sort of key market structure shifts. That's what we have seen really drive, because we were really looking at 17 million contracts a day in multi-list volume back in 2019, and now we're at 43 million contracts a day. Incredible. So it's been quite incredible with the same number outside of MEMX, which is relatively new set of exchanges.
The same number of platforms.
So we have what's different about it? It's the number of instruments that are available to trade. It's the interest in the space. And it's what we've seen is that it's been very concentrated. So like I said, if you look at a graph of the sort of the top 10, the top 50 names versus everything else, like the top 50 to 3,500, the single stock space was very big during COVID because of that retail volume. But that has totally shifted now. Now it's the top 10 have surpassed everything else in October of last year, and it remains higher in concentrated volume than everything else. So it's very top heavy.
But it's very interesting though, at the same time, because you say that, but then again, the volume distribution that we see in the US, when you compare it to, say, Europe, is incredible. And I mean, the one I would always give the example of is, of course, and there's a beautiful model in the reception here, Ferrari. I mean, Ferrari, dual listed between Milan, naturally, I suppose, and NYSE. But actually, you try to trade options in Milan on race, and it's a disaster. I mean, you can manage to drive a bus sideways through it, not just a Ferrari. And yet, as soon as the bell goes here, suddenly you've got an incredibly liquid quotation, and there's something about that amazing underlying depth of liquidity across the U.S. markets.
And it's a strength of our entire market, right? That's its strength of not only NYSE, but NYSE's component within the rest of the exchange universe and universe. Because we always say this is that as quote traffic and message volumes continue to grow, like we still want everybody to continue to be stable and be resilient and be good exchange operators, because should one fail, the concern is that would be a signal to maybe a less confident marketplace. And we don't want that, because we feel like we have a very strong backbone. We have a very strong foundation. We have very strong technology and very strong regulatory environment, right? So we have a very ongoing, lots of ongoing conversations with the regulators. And it's been, a very strong universe. So as you say, like we can just sort of put in something new and we can use the same framework that we have to continue to grow.
Which is fabulous. But you say using the same framework, but of course you have had quite a big bit of technology change in the course of the last year. So now both your markets are on Pillar, right? And so walk us through sort of what Pillar changed and how that's improved the NYSE proposition.
Yeah, that's something that we're very excited about. Pillar has been a huge benefit for us because we really looked at it as a whiteboarding session of not just bringing over everything that we did in the last system over, but as an opportunity to be able to say, these nooks and crannies were here for a period of time for historical reasons that we no longer need. So it's more forward looking. And as we built out pillars, like what do we need for our future, let alone what do we need from, what sort of did we use to be able to build these foundational building blocks to where we were today. So we cleaned out a lot of things that we knew that we were no longer needing. And we did it in a way that was scalable for the future, but the foundation is really simplicity and efficiency for everyone involved. Like our clients, have a single universal interface for all 5 equity markets and our 2 options markets. They have same liquidity code information. They have the same engagement across our technology teams, our support teams. Really, all of that is very fluid now. Whereas before it was sort of 2 bespoke methodologies, languages, engagements, 2 different desks supporting them, technology systems and different prioritization queues, et cetera. So that all is now been wiped out. It's very simple and efficient. So for us, Pillar provided a huge stepping stone into sort of our future. And with that, we were able to really, our foundation is building sort of new innovative technical innovations in the exchange space here at NYSE and NYSE. And we were able to really sort of catapult ourselves into that area. And we have seen a huge growth aspect on Amex. So we completed Amex by Halloween of last year, end of October. And we've seen roughly almost 200 basis points of improved volume and market share come to Amex on a slow add because we can see people are much more comfortable and understanding and deterministic of how they're engaging on our platforms. And that is huge because if they know how they're engaging with our system, they're more confident in showing a larger size, more symbols, just more risk. And so that's really been the driver of our Pillar efforts is too successful, thankfully, knock on wood, migrations from our clients' perspective, because we asked a lot. We were with these clients for many, many months in sort of a testing environment phase, making sure they're comfortable, making sure they have the right information, the right risk controls, all of it, and answered any questions, did a lot of deep dives with everybody. And we sort of held everybody's hand to make sure they're ready, because if they're not ready and we are, that's not a great situation to be in. So we all had to be ready at the same time. So it took a lot of planning and effort, but we thankfully successfully completed both markets, ARCA in July of 2022, and then not 2023 in October for Amex.
Well, that's phenomenal altogether. And of course, then another trend to finish sort of the nerd out on the option side of the market. Well, actually, we had coffee just the other day with an investor in this town, and I mean, it was almost like they'd had Tourette's because all they could say was zero DTE, zero DTE at all points in time. So we're seeing, I mean, there is a lot of content change has taken place in these shorter duration specialist options and so on. How do you view those, and where do you think that's going to be going as a business for you?
Sure. So it's important to identify that there is a lot of hype around zero DTE and that sort of nomenclature that's out there in the media. These are listed as exchange listing standards, are put in place and are available in public documents today, roughly 2 weeks ahead of time. So they really have a 2-week lead time of a daily capability to trade in. What we've seen from the data set, especially from those 5 ETFs that were recently added last November on the Wednesdays, there's hardly any volume in like T minus 12 days. And then as you go up to 2 days, there's a huge spike up in volume. So it's really the volume, the availability to trade is there up to 2 weeks in advance, but the real interest is really a day to 2 days before the actual expiration of those Wednesdays. And that just signals to us that there's a lot more specific sort of investor profiles that they're utilizing these instruments on using these particular maturities and those times to gain a sort of more fine-tuned access to the market that they didn't have access to before. So we view that most likely, I think we think it's going to go where they're going to ask for Mondays, which I think is maybe out there right now with the commission to review and approve. And if that's the case, then they go with how SPY, IWM, and Qs have gone, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. So those 5 may get the rest of the day, the days a week that they don't have. The largest question that's on the table from an industry standpoint right now is, should we move this to single stocks?
Right.
The top handful. 1, 2, 3, 5 names. And that's a question that everybody's really kind of looking through from a very wide perspective, because there's a lot of potential different changes that are unique to single stocks that are different than ETFs.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a hot topic on a lot of the industry-wide working groups. I think all the right people are engaged from a diverse market participant standpoint, getting a lot of input to ensure that we understand what's important for all these different market participants, including the exchanges, so we can make sure we're making the right choices as an industry on opening up that to the single stocks. So we'll see where we are.
It's also an interesting point, because you look at the top 7, 10 most liquid, largest cap single stocks in the USA, and they're all larger than essentially some of the top 10 stock markets.
Yes.
So it's not as if we're dealing with tiny little couple $100 million companies or something like that are going to be skewed. And when you've got the top 3, 4 are all basically bigger than the top European stock exchanges in their entirety, each of which are themselves supporting 70 or 80 different individual names of options. It's quite incredible.
It is.
Speaking about hype and technology, what's your view or ICE view on Bitcoins and ETFs?
Yeah, so we have, along with other exchanges, earlier this year we submitted a filing on sort of 2 levels. One at the Bitcoin ETF option levels, listing those, as well as a broader commodity ETF option baseline, where things like GLD, platinum, palladium, and other sort of general commodity ETFs live. That the Bitcoin / or crypto or Ether or other things could also live in that world of. So we have filings with the commission right now that are out there, and they're open for public notice and comment right now. We are also working with XBX, which is a CoinDesk indices, to be able to look at possibility of doing a cash settled index option based on the XBX underlying, and so as a proprietary product. So we're excited about that as well. I think there's other areas that are out there, but right now, we're trying to explore areas wherever we can that we think that will add value, and this area does seem to have a lot of driven growth associated with it.
Speak about adding value. What is your number 1 life lesson quote, and how did it change you?
Number 1 life lesson quote?
Yes.
It's a really good question. I would say curiosity and hard work are the 2 main things that have really been driven into me from a young age onwards. And I think the tenacity of keeping with those 2 things have really driven my career up into this point.
Excellent. Patrick?
Well, it's a question I ask everybody. I mean, where do you think the capital market revolution is going to go next, Meaghan?
So I think that US option market makers love making markets on 2-sided markets. So we love more capabilities of more IPOs. So we would love, we expect and we see the IPO market heating back up. So we hope that the capital market continues to be super strong for us. We're at roughly, I said 43 million contracts ADV a day. Somebody's talked about 100 million contracts ADV at some point in the next couple of years. So we hope that, the strength of the capital markets will allow the US option market to grow that space with the extra interest coming from abroad. We're seeing a lot of interest from Europe, Asia, LATAM, and then just a very strong capital markets so we can start trading more options on them.
Amen. Meaghan Dugan, it's been a joy to have you here on IPO-VID, and also
nice to woman on it. Hack the future.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next book of the week will be unveiled in the next weekend edition of Exchange Invest. You can subscribe to that for free, ladies and gentlemen. Some more macro topic reading on the weekend. Don't forget, though, the lifeblood of what pays for us to be able to bring you this podcast and also live stream is the Exchange Invest newsletter. It's now available, only $375 per user per year, and it is the insight the exchange of information, all the news about the business of bourses brought to your inbox Monday through Friday every week. Sign up now, please, at exchangeinvest.com in order to support us. While we're here, don't forget, if you can, ladies and gentlemen, give us a little bit of love. Whatever platform you're watching this on right now, we're bringing this joint PhD, Woman on It, Hack the Future, and IPO-VID event. We would love to have your support, ladies and gentlemen, with a little love, because that's what makes AI bots ever so happy and push us up the rankings so that more people can watch what we're doing.
And that's it from episode 149 of the IPO-VID live stream and episode 151 of the PhD Positivity Hacks, delivered. To stay updated and never miss another episode or IPO of PhD, follow Woman on It or IPO-VID channel and turn on notifications to be alerted once the video has been released. And finally, if you don't like something, change it. Today is your day to hack the future.
Today's your day to hack the future. If you don't like something, change it. If you don't feel like changing it, change your attitude or something like that. What am I supposed to say?
Absolutely. Maya Angelou quote.
Quote. There you go. Never heard that before. I just thought it up on the spot.
Absolutely. Lots of quotes. Lots of love from the ICE and from New York today, tomorrow. And as Patrick always says in his show,
thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We wish you all the very best in life and markets, but let's say one final big word of thanks to all the great folk at the New York Stock Exchange, led by President Lynn Martin and Vice Chairman John Tuttle, who were there for the bell ringing last week. We really, really appreciate all of your input, everybody who's on the NYSE communications team, all of those who've been around today. It's been an absolutely incredible experience to have these few days over here inside the Ice House. So, signing off from the library for the last time, don't forget to get your copy of Capital Market Revolution 25th Anniversary Edition ebook now. My name is Patrick L. Young, wishing you a great week in life and markets.
Beata Young, wishing everybody, and especially our production team, all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.